In this lesson, we'll take a look at how we can turn those splines into geometry. So as we talked about, the things that we created right now are just basically 2D, almost images, just spline shapes. Okay, so let's take our splines. I've turned them all, made them all visible, and let's just kind of make them around the same size so they take up roughly the same space. So we can do that by selecting each one of these. We can use our different transform tools to move them and scale them. Another thing that we will do is I'm going to go ahead and take all these, and you can see we have basic coordinate object in our attributes now. We'll go to coordinate, and I'm just going to freeze all on all of those, and that's just going to zero out our coordinates if we happen to have moved those or scaled those anywhere. Next, I'll take each one of these, and I want to move the center of each one of these to the actual center of the bounding box. So let's go to Mesh, Axis Center, and we'll center Axis 2. You can see it moved it down a little bit on that one. Here, let's do the same thing. Center Axis 2, so it's centering our axis. And let's do the same thing here. And then we'll center this axis as well. Right now you can see it's just at the center of that circle. I moved it up a little bit. Okay, so now let's turn off all but one of these. So maybe use this one as our example. What we'd like to do now is make this into a piece of geometry. So give it some thickness, maybe some rounded edges. We can do that using a generator. So this one is going to be located right up here where you can see subdivision surface. If we click and hold, you can see there's lathe, sweep, Bezier, loft, and extrude. So these will all work with splines here, these will. And then we can go ahead and create different types of geometry from those splines. So in this case, we want to create sort of a stamped flat piece of geometry, so we're going to use extrude. Now if you remember, the way that we get these to work is we take the spline that we want to use, we parent it underneath. So let's take the spline and parent it underneath the extrude. Now if we select the extrude, we can go to Object, and you can see there are, along the movement, there's three values here. There are three values, 0, 0, and 20. These correspond to the different axes. Okay, so the X, Y, and Z. So right now, we're getting some thickness going in this direction. That's because we have the 20 centimeters here in the Z. So if we zero that out, you can see it's just a flat plane, no thickness. If we were to create some movement in the X, you can see it's going along the X direction, which in this case doesn't make much sense. We don't want to do that. We can also do it in the Y, up and down. So for our case, and it will change depending on how your spline is oriented. If it's oriented along the X, then you're going to want to add your movement along the X. But for us, we want to create some thickness along the Z. Now you can see how it treats this spline. So this is a nice closed spline all the way around the outside, so you don't want to have an open spline for this. Even though we do have a hole in the middle, it does have an area in here that makes sense for creating geometry. Okay, there's no openings in here, everything is enclosed, and it makes sense. You could put other holes in here too, and it would take those into account. You can see I can turn the effect of the extrude on or off. Now the extrude is creating this geometry right in here, and the geometry on the front and on the back, those are the caps. So if we come into the caps section here, you can see the start and end are set to cap. If we choose to set those to none, we just get the thickness, get kind of a cookie cutter. So we want to set those to cap. And you can see with those caps on, we get a really, really sharp edge. Now we may not want that. We may want an edge that is a little bit softer. Well, we can manipulate that edge by changing our caps from caps to fillet cap. We can do the same thing down here. Now, there's only one step, so you can see we're just getting one single bevel, which might be what you want. But you can also increase the steps to make more of a curved corner. We can do the same thing on the back. You can also increase the size of the radius or decrease it. So make a larger soft edge or a smaller one. You can see it also affects the inside of our circle here. So let's just set this to maybe something like 8. And I just want to make it even on both sides. Now there are also different types of fillets. So if you don't want just a rounded corner like that, that's the convex type. You can also set it to linear, so it would be kind of a straight bevel. We could make it concave, which would be sort of an inset there. You can kind of see that. It looks similar from this angle, but up here you can kind of see where it's inset. We could also do like a half circle, which would give you kind of a lip that sticks up. So there's a lot that we can do here just with this simple generator. So I'm going to set this back to convex to make a nice rounded corner there. And then we can always go back to object and we can change the depth by changing the movement. So once we get the settings like we want, one thing we could do would just be to control drag this extrude, delete that, and put the new one inside. Okay, do the same thing here. Delete that, put the spline inside that. That way we don't have to set all those values. Okay, all the values have been carried over, so they should all be the same. Now we can turn this one off, and we can see the other ones there. So here's the one shape. There's that one. Can turn that off. There's the other one. And all the edges have the same settings, the same attributes. All right, so that's how we can really quickly add some thickness to our little shapes that we've created using an extrude object. If you want to experiment with the lathe, that'll kind of revolve it around a particular axis, or a sweep will take geometry along another, take a spline along another spline. Think of that like a tube. And then extrude will allow us to create these nice little stamped shapes. This is good for text as well. If you want to create 3D text, just type that out with text, and then you can add the extrude to add the thickness. So in the next lesson, let's take a look at one of Cinema 4D's powerful tools, a cloner object. That'll allow us to create a bunch of different objects and have a lot of control over how those are laid out, and then also have some control over the animation and movement of those. So let's take a look at cloner objects next.